Welcome back to the Python tutorial series. I'm so glad you're here. Today we will learn about the walrus operator. So let's get started. First, let's explain what a walrus operator does. I'm going to use a basic example in the file I created called the walrusoperator.py. I'm going to create a variable called value and set that equal to 3, and then I'm going to print value. And this takes 2 lines of code, but I could do it in one if I were to do something like print value equals 5. However, this does not work. You cannot do this, but you can do this with a walrus operator. So the colon equals, so now it's going to work. So now when I run this, it should output 5 for the second line, so it outputs 3 and 5. So this symbol right here is the walrus operator. Walrus operators are great for making programs run faster, and it is also syntactic sugar. Basically, all that means is that it can be done in a different way, but syntactical sugar reduces the lines of code you have to write. And also, important to note, the Walrus operator is only available in Python versions 3.8 and later. So now let's use a real-world example. I created a file called walrus with while loops.py. If I want to display a menu, I could do that in a while loop using a variable called done and setting this equal to false initially. Then I'll enter the while loop and I'll say while not done, and then I'm going to print a list of options. 1 do operation 1, 2 do operation 2, 3 do operation 3, and to quit this while loop, enter -1. So then I'm gonna have the user create a selection, and I'll set this equal to an integer that they will input, so they'll enter an option. Then I want to check if the selection equals -1, and if it equals -1, I want to escape the while loop, so I'll set done equal to true. Now I'll run this. If I do 1, it's going to do operation 1, which we don't have anything in there right now, but this just shows an example. Then it's going to go through the while loop and ask us to enter another option. And this time I'm going to quit by entering -1, and it finishes. And where the walrus operator comes in is we can remove this if statement entirely and the done variable. So I'm going to comment this out, and I'm going to display the selection first. Then I'll start my while statement, and I'll say while this selection. So I'm going to copy this variable. So while this does not equal -1, and here is where I put my walrus operator after selection, the colon and equal sign. So after this, I just want to display the menu again. So we reduced this from 6 lines of code to 3 lines of code by introducing the walrus operator. So if we run this again, it will still work. For example, if I enter 1, it's going to repeat the loop, and if I enter -1, it's going to quit the loop. So that's how walrus operators work with while loops. Now let's see how walrus operators work with list comprehensions. I created a list called myList and I entered a bunch of random numbers, but let's assume this list is going to be very long, so time complexity is going to be an issue here. I'm going to create a function called calculateResult, and it's going to have one parameter x, and all I'm going to do is return whatever I want to calculate. So in this case, it's x cubed plus 3x squared. Now I can perform this calculation using list comprehensions. So I'm going to set result equal to calculate result x and do this for each x in numList. And then I'm going to print the result. So when we run this, this works. However, let's say I only want to display the numbers less than 300. So after this, I can do if calculate result x is less than 300. Now I'll run this again, and it only shows 420 and 54. However, the problem here is that we are calling the function twice, and if this list is extremely long, it's going to take a lot of time, because we only need to call calculate result once for each x, because we already know it. So let's comment this line out, then let's use the Walrus operator to speed this up. So here, instead of calculate result x, I'm just going to say result. Then I'm going to create a variable here called result, and I'll use the Walrus operator to set this equal to calculate result x. So here it only calls the function once and not twice for every x. So now when I run this, we get the same answer, and it's much faster when it's a very long list. And that's an overview of how the Walrus operator works. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to follow along with this video series by subscribing and hitting the notification bell, or by clicking on the next video so that you can expand your knowledge about Python. And as always, I can't wait to see you next time.